Here are the 3 most expensive mistakes data analysts make when gathering visualization requirements. Assuming they know what stakeholders need, asking vague questions, and focusing on technical details instead of business outcomes. These mistakes lead to wasted time, frustrated business partners, and dashboards that never get used. In this podcast, we'll transform you from a passive data presenter into a strategic data communicator. I'll show you exactly how to identify what different audiences need, the questions that uncover their true requirements, and how to adapt the same data set for different visualization scenarios. Let's start by examining 3 real dashboard examples with dramatically different effectiveness. The tale of 3 dashboards, a visual comparison. Let me show you 3 dashboard examples I've been studying. Take a look at these side by side. Each one presents the same sales data for a retail company, but with dramatically different approaches to visualization. Dashboard A features a clean, minimalist design with just 4 key metrics prominently displayed. There's a single line chart showing revenue trends, a bar chart comparing sales by region, a simple table listing top products, and a small map highlighting store locations. The color scheme uses only 3 colors consistently throughout. Dashboard B takes a more elaborate approach. It contains 12 different visualizations, including multiple pie charts, stacked bar graphs, several line charts with overlapping data series, and heat maps. The design uses a gradient color scheme with over 10 different colors. Every available space is filled with information, creating a dense information landscape. Dashboard C strikes a middle ground. It contains 7 visualizations organized in clear sections. It uses a moderate color palette with 5 colors, includes several interactive elements, and provides some explanatory text alongside the visualizations. It has more detail than Dashboard A, but less crowding than Dashboard B. Before I tell you which one is most effective, which do you think it is? Take a moment to consider which dashboard you believe would best help a business leader make decisions and why you think so. What elements stand out to you as particularly effective or ineffective? Now, here's what's fascinating. When I've presented these examples to groups of data professionals, over 65% typically select Dashboard B as the most effective. They are drawn to its comprehensiveness and visual complexity. About 25% choose Dashboard C, appreciating its balance. Only 10% select the minimalist Dashboard A. But here's the surprising reality. Dashboard A consistently outperforms the others in actual user testing. When we track how business users interact with these dashboards using eye-tracking technology, the results are illuminating. Look at these heat maps showing where users' eyes focus when using each dashboard. With Dashboard A, you can see concentrated attention on the key metrics with a clear scan pattern following the intended flow of information. Users spend an average of 45 seconds actively engaging with the content before making decisions. With Dashboard B, the eye tracking shows chaotic patterns. Users' eyes jump erratically across the screen, never settling long enough to process information deeply. Many areas receive no attention at all despite containing data. Users spend nearly 3 minutes trying to make sense of it, but report lower confidence in their decisions afterward. Dashboard C shows better engagement than B, but still creates divided attention. Users spend too much time trying to understand the organization rather than interpreting the data. The fundamental difference? Dashboard A was designed with specific business questions in mind. Which region needs sales support? Are we on track to hit quarterly targets? Which product line should we expand? Each visualization directly answers one business question. The designer ruthlessly eliminated anything that didn't serve these core decisions. Dashboard B, while impressive looking, prioritized comprehensive data display over decision support. It aimed to show everything possible about the business rather than guiding users to insights. The designer focused on technical display rather than business utility. The information density between these dashboards is striking. Dashboard A presents approximately 40 data points, carefully selected for relevance. Dashboard B bombards users with over 500 data points, creating what psychologists call cognitive overload. Dashboard C falls in between with about 150 data points. Color usage also plays a crucial role. Dashboard A's limited palette makes meaningful color distinctions stand out. Red immediately draws attention to underperforming metrics. Dashboard B's rainbow approach dilutes the signaling power of color. When everything is highlighted, nothing stands out. The layout differences are equally important. Dashboard A uses a Z pattern layout that matches how Western readers naturally scan information from top left to bottom right. Dashboard B lacks hierarchical organization, while Dashboard C attempts structure but still lacks clear visual priority. What's particularly revealing is that the poor dashboard overwhelms users not just with quantity but with variety. Dashboard B uses 7 different visualization types, forcing users to constantly switch mental models to interpret each new chart type. Dashboard A uses just 3 visualization types consistently, reducing the cognitive burden. Think about what specific elements make Dashboard A work so effectively. What do you think sets it apart? What principles might be at play that make the minimalist approach actually more functional? The answer comes down to 3 key differences that separate effective visualizations from poor ones. First is purpose clarity. Excellent dashboards are designed with specific decisions in mind, not just to display data. Dashboard A knows exactly what questions it's answering and strips away everything else. Second is audience alignment. Dashboard A was designed with a deep understanding of its users. Busy executives who need quick insights, not data analysts looking to explore patterns. The designer understood the technical comfort level, domain knowledge, and time constraints of the audience. Third is actionable insights. Look closely at Dashboard A again. Every metric is accompanied by a small indicator showing whether action is needed, up-down arrows, red-green signals, or explicit action-required flags. Dashboard B presents raw data without interpretation, while Dashboard C provides some context but lacks clear action triggers. These 3 elements, purpose clarity, audience alignment, and actionable insights, form the foundation of effective dashboard design. They transcend aesthetics and technical sophistication to focus on what truly matters, supporting better business decisions. The business requirements gap. Why most dashboards fail. Despite our understanding of dashboard fundamentals, here's a sobering reality. 76% of dashboards created are rarely or never used by their intended audience. This staggering statistic reveals something profound about the gap between technical capability and practical utility in data visualization. The disconnect runs deeper than aesthetics or technical implementation. It's a fundamental misalignment between what data analysts believe stakeholders need and what those stakeholders actually use to make decisions. I've seen countless organizations spend weeks developing visually impressive dashboards packed with comprehensive metrics, only to have them collect digital dust after the initial presentation. This misalignment stems from different perspectives. Data analysts, trained to be thorough and precise, often approach visualization with a completeness mindset. They believe their primary responsibility is to present all available data in its full complexity. Meanwhile, business stakeholders approach dashboards with a decision-oriented mindset, looking specifically for information that helps them take action. A recent project at a national retail chain illustrates this perfectly. Their analytics team developed what they considered a masterpiece: a sales dashboard with regional breakdowns, product-level metrics, and sophisticated filtering capabilities. It was technically flawless, yet 3 months after launch, usage metrics showed that leadership barely glanced at it. Why? Because it overwhelmed them with data while failing to answer their most pressing question: which stores need immediate attention? The fundamental issue is that technical analysts frequently prioritize data completeness rather than decision support. They build dashboards that are rich in data but poor in actionable insights. This misalignment creates frustration on both sides. Analysts feel their work goes unappreciated, while business users feel their needs remain unmet. The assumption that business leaders want to see comprehensive data represents a critical misunderstanding. In reality, most stakeholders prefer targeted insights that directly inform specific decisions. This preference isn't about intellectual laziness or disinterest in data. Rather, it reflects the practical constraints of decision-making in fast-paced business environments. When interviewed, business leaders consistently emphasize this point. They value visualizations that directly support their decision-making processes rather than those that merely present data. One executive I spoke with put it bluntly: I don't need to see every data point we collect. I need to see the ones that tell me where to focus my attention today. Another factor contributing to dashboard failure is the language gap between technical and business professionals. Data analysts often communicate in technical terms that don't resonate with stakeholders. When an analyst excitedly shows a dashboard featuring bivariate correlations or normalized distribution patterns, business users may nod politely while internally wondering, but does this tell me if I should increase our marketing budget or not? This communication divide extends beyond terminology to fundamental concepts. Analysts get excited about statistical significance and data granularity, while business users care about practical significance and actionable insights. When they talk about a comprehensive dashboard, they're often describing entirely different visions. I witnessed this disconnect firsthand at a financial services company. Their data team proudly presented a new customer dashboard to the sales leadership. The analysts highlighted the sophisticated data model and comprehensive metrics, average time between transactions, customer segmentation by spending patterns, and lifetime value projections. The sales leaders listened politely, but later confided they simply wanted to know which customers are at risk of leaving and which ones might buy more if approached correctly. The dashboard included this information, but buried among dozens of other metrics that diluted its impact. The solution begins with understanding that dashboards aren't primarily technical artifacts, they're decision support tools. Their value lies not in their technical sophistication, but in how effectively they guide business actions. When we strip away the technical complexity, most visualization requests fall into three fundamental business needs. First, decision support. The primary purpose of most dashboards should be helping stakeholders make specific business decisions. These might be strategic choices like market expansion or tactical decisions like inventory adjustments. Effective dashboards don't just display data, they frame it in ways that directly inform choices. Second, performance tracking. Business leaders need to monitor key metrics against targets to understand if they're on track or need to make corrections. This requires dashboards that clearly show current performance relative to goals, highlighting exceptions that require attention. Third, anomaly detection. In complex business environments, leaders need dashboards that immediately alert them to unusual patterns or deviations from expected outcomes. Rather than reviewing all metrics, they need dashboards that surface the exceptions requiring immediate attention. Understanding these core business needs transforms how we approach visualization. Instead of starting with the data and deciding how to display it, we should start with the decision and work backward to determine what data supports it. This means asking different questions during the requirements gathering phase. Rather than what metrics do you want to see, we should ask what decisions will this dashboard help you make? Rather than how often do you want this updated? We should ask what actions will you take based on changes in these metrics? This shift requires bridging the communication gap between technical and business professionals. Analysts need to speak less about data structures and visualization types and more about business outcomes and decision support. When technical teams reframe their language around business value rather than technical implementation, alignment naturally improves. Several case studies demonstrate how this approach transforms dashboard effectiveness. A healthcare network struggling with low dashboard adoption completely reimagined their approach. Instead of providing comprehensive metrics about patient flow, they created targeted visualizations that answered three specific questions their emergency department managers needed to address daily. Usage increased tenfold, and more importantly, decision quality improved measurably. Similarly, a manufacturing company replaced their complex operations dashboard with three simple visualizations focused specifically on identifying production bottlenecks. The new dashboard didn't just get more use, it directly contributed to a 12% efficiency improvement in their production process. The key lesson from these examples is that less is often more in dashboard design. Focusing on the specific decisions that need support and eliminating everything else creates visualizations that actually drive business action rather than simply displaying data. The stakeholder interview framework, questions that reveal true needs. Have you ever spent weeks building what you thought was the perfect dashboard, only to have your stakeholder glance at it for 10 seconds before asking for something completely different? This painful scenario plays out in data teams around the world every day, and it stems from a fundamental communication problem rather than a technical one. The gap between what stakeholders request and what they truly need represents one of the most challenging aspects of data visualization work. When a business leader says, "I need a dashboard about sales," what do they actually mean? Without a structured approach to uncovering their true requirements, you're essentially playing a high-stakes guessing game. One analyst might create a comprehensive view of all sales metrics, another might focus on regional comparisons, and a third might emphasize trends over time. All three could be technically correct but completely miss what the stakeholder actually needed. Consider what happened at Western Electronics, where an analytics team spent 6 weeks building an elaborate sales dashboard with every metric imaginable. The VP of sales looked at it briefly during the presentation and then asked, "But which sales reps should I be focusing my coaching time on this month?" The entire dashboard had missed the fundamental decision the VP needed to make. Had the team asked the right questions up front, they could have saved weeks of wasted effort. The solution to this common problem is surprisingly straightforward. Implement a structured stakeholder interview framework before you build anything. This framework consists of 3 essential categories of questions that transform vague requests into clear, actionable requirements. The first category focuses on decision questions. These questions aim to uncover precisely what decisions your stakeholder needs to make with the visualization, rather than asking, "What metrics do you want to see?" Start with, "What specific decision will this visualization help you make?" The difference in responses is striking. When data analyst Maria Chang at Health First Network shifted to this approach, her stakeholders' answer immediately clarified the entire project. "I need to decide which patient outreach programs to expand and which to scale back based on their impact on readmission rates." Follow-up decision questions might include, "How frequently do you make this decision?" and "What information do you currently use to make this decision?" Another powerful question is, "How will you know if this dashboard is successful?" One CTO responded, "If it helps me identify which development teams need additional resources before they miss their deadlines." This single answer provided more clarity than a dozen emails about technical specifications. The second category explores audience questions. Even if your primary stakeholder understands their needs, the dashboard might serve multiple audiences with different requirements. Essential questions include, who else will use this dashboard, and what are their technical comfort levels? And will different user groups need different views of this information? At Global Shipping Inc., an operations dashboard failed because it was designed for senior executives but was primarily used by regional managers who needed more granular data. Had the design team asked audience questions, they would have created role-specific views that served both groups effectively. Another crucial audience question is, how much time will users typically spend reviewing this dashboard? If the answer is less than 2 minutes during a weekly meeting, that dramatically changes your design approach compared to an in-depth analysis tool used for extended periods. The third category covers context questions, which establish the operational parameters for your visualization. These questions address how the dashboard will integrate into existing workflows and technical environments. Start with, how frequently will this data need to be updated to remain useful? A dashboard showing real-time manufacturing floor metrics has very different requirements than a monthly strategic review. Ask, in what setting will this dashboard typically be viewed? A visualization designed for a large boardroom monitor requires different design choices than one viewed primarily on laptops or mobile devices. Other important context questions include, what actions or processes should this dashboard support? And are there any existing reports or dashboards this one will replace? Understanding the current state helps you retain valuable elements while improving on weaknesses. The most powerful requirement gathering question spans all 3 categories. What action will you take based on this information? This single question cuts through ambiguity and focuses the discussion on outcomes rather than data points. When a marketing director answers, "I'll reallocate our digital advertising budget across channels based on conversion rates," you instantly know what metrics matter most and how to structure your visualization. At FinServ Partners, this approach transformed their client reporting process. Previously, account managers would request comprehensive client performance dashboards that took weeks to build and rarely satisfied client needs. After implementing a structured interview process centered on action-oriented questions, they started creating targeted visualizations that directly supported specific client discussions. The result was a 40% reduction in dashboard development time and significantly higher client satisfaction ratings. The transformation of vague requests into precise requirements through this framework is remarkable. Consider how these 3 stakeholder statements evolved through the interview process. Initial request: I need a dashboard about our website. After interview: I need to identify which content drives the most qualified lead conversions so I can prioritize our content creation efforts for the next quarter. Initial request: show me our customer retention data. After interview: I need to identify which customer segments show early warning signs of attrition so our success team can implement targeted retention programs before they cancel. Initial request: I want to see our inventory levels. After interview: I need to balance inventory costs against stockout risks by identifying which products need reordering in the next 2 weeks based on current inventory, lead times, and sales velocity. Each of these clarified requirements leads to a completely different visualization approach, even though they started with vague general requests. The secret lies in asking the right questions that reveal the decisions, audience needs, and contextual factors that will determine dashboard success. To consistently apply this framework, create a stakeholder interview guide with your most effective questions. Begin each requirements gathering session with this statement: to create the most useful visualization possible, I'd like to understand more about the decisions you're trying to make and how this dashboard will support them. This sets the tone for a productive conversation focused on outcomes rather than features. Email templates that get clear requirements the first time. That structured interview framework works brilliantly when you can get stakeholders in the same room, but the modern workplace often forces us into the tangled web of email communication instead. Behind every failed dashboard is frequently a trail of dozens of fragmented messages where critical requirements were buried, misinterpreted, or never requested at all. In fact, data professionals spend an average of 7.3 hours per week just clarifying requirements through disjointed email threads, time that could be spent creating actual value from data. You've likely experienced this frustrating cycle. You receive a vague request, respond with questions, wait days for partial answers, ask follow-up questions, and repeat until weeks have passed with no clear direction. This email ping-pong isn't just inefficient, it actively undermines your ability to deliver meaningful results. Let's examine a typical poorly structured requirements email. Hi Sarah, marketing wants a dashboard for the new campaign. Can you put something together by next week? Thanks. This request lacks nearly everything you need to succeed. Which marketing campaign? Who specifically needs this dashboard? What decisions will they make with it? What metrics matter most? What's the actual deadline? The response to this email will inevitably generate more questions than answers, starting a cycle of fragmented communication. Compare that to a structured template approach. Hi Sarah, the marketing team needs visibility into our Q3 product launch campaign performance to optimize our advertising spend for the remaining budget. Specifically, we need to understand: 1. Which channels are delivering the highest quality leads, measured by conversion rate and customer acquisition cost? 2. How current performance compares to our targets and previous campaigns. 3. Where we might reallocate budget for the final 4 weeks of the campaign. Could you create a dashboard that helps answer these questions? We'd need a first version by next Friday, October 15, to inform our month-end budget decisions. Let me know if you need any additional information to get started. Thanks, Michael. Notice how this structured request provides clear context, specific questions, a meaningful timeline, and next steps. It transforms a vague request into actionable requirements. The most effective requirement gathering emails follow a consistent 4-part structure. First, establish project context. This isn't just explaining what's needed, it's framing why it matters. A strong context section clarifies the business situation, decisions to be made, and why those decisions are important now. This immediately elevates the conversation from a technical task to a business solution. For example, our customer service team is experiencing a 15% increase in support tickets, and we need to understand if this is happening across all product lines or concentrated in specific areas. This will help us determine whether to increase staffing broadly or focus training on specific product knowledge. Second, include specific open-ended questions structured to prevent one-word answers. The quality of your questions directly determines the quality of requirements you'll receive. Questions should be precise enough to guide thinking, but open enough to reveal needs you hadn't anticipated. Avoid. Do you want to see sales data? Instead, which specific aspects of sales performance would help you identify where to focus your team's efforts next quarter? Avoid. Should we include product categories? Instead, how do you currently compare performance between different product categories, and what insights do you need from these comparisons? Third, establish clear timelines and expectations. This isn't just about setting a deadline, it's about creating a shared understanding of the project timeline, including interim check-ins and feedback opportunities. Being explicit about when you need responses helps prevent requirements gathering from dragging on indefinitely. For example, to meet the board presentation deadline of November 15th, I'll need final requirements by October 20th. This allows time for dashboard development, Octi 21 to 28, initial review, Octi 29, refinements, Nov 15, and final validation, Nov 8 to 12. Fourth, outline specific next steps with clear ownership. This transforms a request into an actionable plan and prevents requirements from falling into a communication void. For example, based on your responses to the questions above, I'll create a simple mock-up for your review by Thursday. If you could provide feedback by Monday, we can finalize the requirements next week. When communicating complex visualization needs, include examples or mock-ups to clarify expectations. A simple sketch or screenshot of a similar dashboard can prevent misalignment far more effectively than paragraphs of description. These visual references create a shared language between technical and business stakeholders. For stakeholders who struggle to articulate their needs, try sending a straw man example, a simple placeholder dashboard that gives them something concrete to react to. Often people find it easier to say, not quite that, more like this, than to describe requirements from scratch. Template is in the description. The true power of these templates lies not just in their structure, but in how they train your stakeholders to think differently about their requests. Over time, you'll notice stakeholders beginning to adopt this framework themselves, proactively providing more complete information with each new request. Same data, different visualizations, matching charts to audience needs. Once stakeholders provide clear requirements, your next challenge is translating that raw data into visualizations that drive decisions. Most analysts make the fundamental mistake of letting the data structure dictate their visualization choices when the audience's role and decision context should be the determining factor instead. Let me show you how 3 radically different visualizations of identical sales data can serve 3 entirely different business purposes. I've taken a standard quarterly sales data set from a mid-sized electronics retailer and created 3 completely different dashboards using the exact same information. What's fascinating is how the same numbers tell entirely different stories depending on who's viewing them. For the CEO's dashboard, we've prioritized high-level strategic insights. Notice how this visualization strips away granular details in favor of clear trend lines, showing year-over-year performance across major product categories. The focal point is a simple gauge showing performance against annual targets, currently at 94%, positioned prominently in the upper left corner where Western readers naturally look first. The CEO doesn't need to know that store number 37 sold 15 smartphones last Tuesday. Instead, this executive view emphasizes competitive positioning with a market share comparison chart showing how the company stacks up against key competitors across product categories. We've also included a forecast line extending 3 quarters into the future to support strategic planning discussions. What makes this dashboard effective for an executive audience isn't just what it includes, but what it deliberately excludes. By removing individual product SKUs, daily fluctuations, and regional minutiae, we've created a distraction-free environment for high-level decision-making. The CEO can immediately see that while overall performance is strong, the tablet category is significantly underperforming compared to industry benchmarks. Now, let's look at how the same dataset transforms when visualized for the sales director. This mid-level dashboard shifts focus entirely to team performance and territory management. The central element becomes a regional heat map, showing performance against targets by geographic area, with underperforming regions immediately visible in red. Unlike the CEO dashboard, This visualization breaks down data by individual sales teams with a ranking table showing conversion rates, average deal sizes, and quarterly targets. We've also included a pipeline forecast broken down by sales stage, highlighting potential bottlenecks in the sales process that require immediate attention. What's notable here is how this visualization creates accountability through comparison. By showing team-by-team performance side by side, it naturally drives competitive behavior among sales managers. The presence of specific targets with visual progress indicators transforms this from a passive reporting tool into an active management instrument. Now for our third visualization, same data, completely different presentation for the inventory management team. This operational dashboard prioritizes product-level details with SKU-specific inventory levels across warehouse locations. The central element becomes a reorder alert system showing products approaching minimum threshold levels. Unlike both previous dashboards, this visualization incorporates time sensitivity with color-coded warnings based on reorder lead times. Products needing immediate reordering appear in red, while yellow indicates items approaching reorder points within the next 2 weeks. What's fascinating is how this operational dashboard incorporates velocity metrics, showing not just current inventory levels, but consumption rates over time. This allows inventory managers to anticipate stocking issues before they become critical. We've also included shipping status for incoming orders and back order counts that wouldn't appear on either the executive or sales team dashboards. The inventory visualization stands apart by emphasizing exception handling rather than comprehensive reporting. Instead of showing all 2,500 products, it highlights the 37 items requiring immediate attention. This transforms the dashboard from a passive monitoring tool into an actionable task list for the inventory team. What we're witnessing across these three visualizations is the principle of audience-centered design in action. Each dashboard answers fundamentally different questions despite drawing from identical data sources. The CEO dashboard answers, are we on track to meet our annual goals and how do we compare to competitors? The sales director dashboard answers, which regions need coaching and where should I allocate additional resources? The inventory dashboard answers, what specific actions must be taken today to prevent stockouts and overstock situations? This audience-first approach represents a paradigm shift from how most analysts traditionally work. The conventional method starts with available data, then creates visualizations based on that data structure, line charts for time series, pie charts for proportions, and so on. But effective visualization flips this process completely. Start instead by understanding your audience's specific decisions, then work backward to determine which visualization best supports those choices. A regional VP needs geographic performance data in map format, while a product manager needs detailed time series of feature adoption rates. Different roles, different decisions, different visualizations, even from identical datasets. Consider what happens when we ignore this principle. I recently consulted with a software company where the engineering team created a beautiful dashboard showing every conceivable product usage metric. It was a technical marvel with over 200 distinct measurements that engineers could filter and manipulate. Yet, 6 months after launch, usage logs showed executives spent an average of just 43 seconds with it, barely enough time to log in before abandoning it. When we redesigned this dashboard with audience-specific views, engagement skyrocketed. The executive team received just 7 critical metrics aligned with quarterly goals. Product managers got adoption metrics for recent feature releases. Customer success teams saw retention risk indicators. Engineers maintained access to the comprehensive metrics they needed for troubleshooting. The key breakthrough came when we stopped treating the dashboard as a monolithic product and instead viewed it as multiple decision support tools, sharing a common data foundation. Usage increased by 380% within 3 months after this redesign. This audience-centered approach applies regardless of your visualization tool. Whether you're using Tableau, Power BI, or simple Excel charts, the principles remain constant. First, identify the specific decisions your audience needs to make. Second, determine which metrics directly inform those decisions. Third, choose visualization formats that make those relationships immediately apparent. Finally, ruthlessly eliminate everything else. The single most powerful question you can ask when designing any visualization is, what action should someone take after seeing this chart? If you can't immediately answer that question, reconsider whether the visualization belongs in your dashboard at all. Remember, visualization excellence isn't measured by how comprehensive your dashboard is, but by how quickly it enables the right decisions. Your CEO likely needs to make strategic resource allocation decisions. Your sales director needs to identify coaching opportunities. Your inventory manager needs to prevent stock outs while minimizing carrying costs. Visualization Selection Guide, matching charts to data types. Beyond understanding your audience's needs lies another critical visualization challenge: selecting the right chart for your data type. Have you ever seen a pie chart showing change over time and immediately felt something was fundamentally wrong, even if you couldn't explain why? That instinct is correct. Using a pie chart to display time series data is like using a hammer to insert a screw. The tool simply doesn't match the job. This mismatch between data types and visualization methods is surprisingly common, even among experienced analysts. I recently reviewed a financial dashboard where quarterly growth was displayed as a series of exploding 3D pie charts. It looked impressive, but completely obscured the trend the team was trying to highlight. When we switched to a simple line chart, the growth pattern became immediately obvious. Let me introduce a decision framework that can help you select the right visualization type every time. This approach starts not with what looks impressive, but with the fundamental structure of your data and the specific insights you need to reveal at its core. Most business data falls into one of four primary relationship types: time series, ranking, part to whole, or correlation. Each of these data relationships demands specific visualization techniques to be properly understood. Time series data shows how values change over periods: minutes, days, quarters, or years. For this data relationship, line charts are the gold standard because they excel at showing continuous change and revealing trends. When Jetstream Airlines switched from bar charts to line charts for their passenger volume dashboard, their operations team immediately identified seasonal patterns they had missed for years. Area charts build on line charts by filling the space below the line, making them particularly effective when you need to show volume over time. For instance, a marketing team might use an area chart to display website traffic by channel, with the total area representing overall site visits, while individual colored sections show the contribution of each channel. For situations where space is limited, but trends still matter, Sparklines offer a compact solution. These tiny line graphs without axes or labels can be embedded directly into tables or text. A product dashboard might include sparklines next to inventory levels to quickly show consumption patterns without requiring separate charts. Moving to ranking relationships, bar charts are the undisputed champions. Their rectangular shape makes precise comparison between categories remarkably easy for the human eye. When Eastern Regional Hospital reorganized their emergency department metrics from pie charts to horizontal bar charts, staff immediately recognized which treatment areas needed attention, leading to a 17% reduction in wait times. For rankings with many categories, dot plots provide an elegant alternative. By reducing each bar to a single dot, they can display more categories in the same space. The HR analytics team at Nexus Technologies used dot plots to compare employee satisfaction scores across 32 departments, making it instantly clear which teams needed interventions. Heat maps take this a step further by using color intensity rather than length or position to show values. They're particularly valuable for displaying rankings across multiple dimensions. A retail chain's performance dashboard uses heat maps to show sales performance by product category and store location, creating a two-dimensional ranking that immediately highlights problem areas. For part-to-whole relationships, where you need to show how individual pieces contribute to a total, several visualization options exist, each with specific strengths. Stacked bar charts work well when you need to show both the composition of a whole and compare that whole to other categories. A manufacturing dashboard might use stacked bars to show production output by factory, with each bar segment representing different product lines. Tree maps use nested rectangles to show hierarchical part-to-whole relationships with rectangle size corresponding to value. They're excellent for displaying multiple levels of categorization simultaneously. When the purchasing department at Global Logistics implemented a tree map to visualize spending by category and vendor, they identified 3 major cost-saving opportunities that had been completely hidden in their previous pie chart approach. Regarding pie charts, they do have a place, albeit a limited one. They can be effective when you need to show proportional parts of a whole with very few categories, ideally 3 to 5, and significantly different values. But even then, they should be used cautiously. Research shows that humans struggle to accurately compare angles and area, making pie charts inherently less precise than alternatives like bar charts. What about correlation data, where you're examining relationships between variables? Scatter plots excel here by plotting individual data points along two axes. When Westlake School District implemented scatter plots comparing student attendance with academic performance, they identified specific intervention thresholds that weren't visible in their previous tabular reports. For more complex correlations involving multiple variables, bubble charts add a third dimension through bubble size, while scatter plot matrices can display relationships between many variables simultaneously. These visualization types reveal patterns that simply cannot be seen in simpler charts. The challenge comes when your data involves multiple relationship types simultaneously. How do you combine these chart types effectively in a dashboard? The key is to prioritize the primary relationship for each metric and select visualization methods accordingly. A sales dashboard might use line charts for revenue over time series, bar charts for product performance ranking, and a tree map for market share composition, part to whole. Each visualization is selected to match its specific data relationship rather than forcing all metrics into a single chart type. To guide your selection process, consider this simplified decision tree. First, ask whether your primary goal is to show change over time. If yes, use line charts for continuous data or column charts for discrete time periods. If not time-based, are you primarily comparing categories or showing ranking? Bar charts, horizontal for many categories, vertical for fewer, are your safest choice. If you're showing part-to-whole relationships, ask whether the exact proportions matter. If precision is crucial, stacked bars work better than pie charts. If you have hierarchical categories, tree maps become valuable. For relationships between variables, scatter plots remain the clearest option, with bubble charts for 3 variable relationships. The most effective visualization is rarely the most complex one. Harvard Business School research found that simple, relationship-appropriate charts led to 60% faster decision-making compared to visually impressive but mismatched visualizations. Remember that your visualization method should be driven by your data structure and the specific question you're answering. No amount of design flourish can compensate for a fundamental mismatch between data relationship and chart type. Dashboard transformation from cluttered to clear. Even perfectly chosen chart types can fail when crammed into a cluttered dashboard. What if I told you that removing 60% of the visual elements from a financial dashboard actually improved executive decision-making by 83%? The transformation we're about to examine challenges everything you might assume about comprehensive reporting. Let me show you a real-world example from Meridian Financial Services. Their quarterly performance dashboard began as a dense collection of 17 visualizations across a single screen. The dashboard creator, believing more information equaled better insights, included every metric the executive team had ever mentioned in meetings. The result, executives spent an average of 76 seconds with the dashboard before abandoning it, and typically made decisions based on just 2 of the 17 charts. The problem wasn't the individual visualizations. Many were technically sound. The issue was cognitive overload. When presented with too many options, the human brain defaults to the simplest path, often ignoring valuable information hidden among the clutter. In Meridian's case, executives focused almost exclusively on revenue figures while missing critical signals about customer retention that were buried in the visual noise. The transformation began with a fundamental question: what specific decisions needed to be made quarterly? Through stakeholder interviews, the analytics team identified just 3 critical decisions: allocating marketing resources across regions, adjusting staffing levels in customer service, and evaluating new product performance against targets. With these decisions in mind, the transformation followed a methodical process. First, the team eliminated 11 visualizations that weren't directly relevant to those 3 decisions. This wasn't about destroying data. These metrics were still available in separate detailed reports, but about creating focus in the main dashboard. Next came layout reorganization. The remaining 6 visualizations were arranged to support a natural decision flow Regional marketing performance appeared at the top left, where Western readers naturally begin scanning. Customer service metrics appeared in the center and product performance at the bottom right, creating a logical progression through the dashboard that matched the priority of decisions. The impact of color reduction was particularly striking. The original dashboard used 12 different colors, creating what designers call visual noise. The transformed version used just 3. Blue for performance metrics, orange for customer metrics, and gray for contextual information. By reserving bright colors for only the most important elements, the new design naturally drew attention to critical information. Consider how a surgeon's operating room is organized. Everything has its place, similar tools are grouped together, and the most important instruments are most accessible. The same principles apply to effective dashboards. The transformation at Meridian applied consistent formatting across all visualizations. The same fonts, consistent axis scales were appropriate, and aligned headings. This consistency reduced the cognitive load required to interpret each new chart. Perhaps most counterintuitive was the deliberate addition of white space. The original creator had seen white space as wasted space and filled every pixel with data. The transformed dashboard embraced emptiness between groups of related metrics, creating visual breathing room that actually improved comprehension. Eye-tracking studies showed that executives could now quickly distinguish between different information categories without conscious effort. The results were remarkable. After the transformation, executive engagement with the dashboard increased from 76 seconds to over 4 minutes. More importantly, decision time decreased from requiring a full 48-hour review cycle to most decisions being made within the same meeting. The dashboard had transformed from an ignored obligation to a valued decision tool. What principles guided this transformation? 3 fundamentals emerged that you can apply to any cluttered dashboard. First, purpose clarity. Every element must directly serve specific decisions. At Meridian, they created a simple matrix mapping each visualization to at least one of their 3 critical decisions. Any visualization that couldn't be mapped was removed or relegated to a secondary view. Second, visual hierarchy. Important information should naturally stand out through position, size, and color. Less important contextual information should recede through muted colors and smaller size. The Meridian team applied a squint test. When squinting at the dashboard, only the most critical elements should remain visible. Third, progressive disclosure. Not all information needs to be visible simultaneously. The final design included subtle plus icons that allowed executives to expand sections for deeper analysis when needed, without cluttering the primary view. This approach satisfied both the need for summary information and occasional deep dives. The transformation framework that emerged has proven effective across industries. Start by identifying the specific decisions the dashboard should support. Then audit every element against those decisions, ruthlessly removing anything that doesn't directly contribute. Next, organize the remaining elements into logical groups that follow decision sequences. Apply consistent formatting and deliberate use of color to create clear visual hierarchy. Finally, create a system of progressive disclosure for details that are occasionally but not always necessary. When applied at Central Hospital's emergency department, this framework reduced triage decision time from 43 to 12 seconds by transforming their monitor wall from a cluttered array of metrics to a focused decision support tool. At Tech Growth Solutions, applying these principles to their product development dashboard helped identify failing projects 22 days earlier than their previous system. The most enlightening aspect of these transformations isn't what was added, it's what was removed. In every case, the process involved substantial elimination of elements that the original designers had considered essential. The resistance to this pruning is often the biggest hurdle. As Antoine de Saint-Exupéry famously noted, perfection is achieved not when there is nothing more to add, but when there is nothing left to take away. The deadly dashboard sins, common mistakes to avoid. The path to dashboard excellence isn't just about what to remove, but also about avoiding critical mistakes that undermine effectiveness from the start. Have you ever wondered why some dashboards fail spectacularly despite containing accurate data and following basic design principles? I've collected what I call the gallery of dashboard disasters. Real examples where everything went wrong despite the best intentions. Let me walk you through one particularly striking example. A major pharmaceutical company invested over $200,000 in a sales performance dashboard that was abandoned within 3 weeks of launch. The data was accurate, the visualizations were technically correct, yet the dashboard utterly failed its purpose. Why? Because it committed not just one, but all 4 of what I call the deadly dashboard sins. These dashboard sins aren't just theoretical problems. They're practical pitfalls that even the most experienced analysts fall into repeatedly. What makes them particularly dangerous is how invisible they can be to their creators. The same dashboard that seems perfectly clear to its designer can be completely incomprehensible to its intended audience. The first deadly sin is information overload, cramming too many metrics onto a single view. This was painfully evident in a government agency dashboard that attempted to display 87 distinct metrics on a single screen. The dashboard creators were proud of their comprehensive approach, believing they were providing complete visibility. In reality, they created a visualization so dense that users reported feeling anxious just looking at it. When Northwestern Regional Hospital redesigned their patient care dashboard, they reduced the number of metrics from 42 to just 8. The result? Clinical staff began actually using the dashboard, and response time to critical patient needs improved by 23%. The lesson is clear. Ruthlessly prioritize what truly matters, rather than trying to show everything possible. But how many metrics is too many? Research from the Nielsen-Norman Group suggests that cognitive overload typically begins when users must process more than 5 to 7 distinct elements simultaneously. This doesn't mean your dashboard can only have 5 to 7 total elements. Rather, it means each logical section should be limited to that number, with clear visual separation between groups. The second deadly sin is inconsistent scales and formats that actively mislead viewers. A multinational manufacturing company's operational dashboard used different y-axis ranges for each department's performance charts. When executives compared what appeared to be similar size bars, they were actually comparing entirely different magnitudes of data. This led to a catastrophic misallocation of resources that took months to correct. Another version of this sin appears when comparing time periods of unequal length. A retail chain's quarterly sales dashboard compared a 13-week holiday quarter to an 8-week summer quarter without normalization, creating the impression of a dramatic seasonal slump that didn't actually exist when viewed on a per-week basis. The solution is straightforward, but often overlooked. Maintain consistent scales, formats, and time periods when presenting comparative data. When exceptions must be made, provide clear visual cues and explanations that highlight the different measurement approaches. The third deadly sin is choosing visually appealing but functionally poor chart types. I consulted for a financial services firm that used radar charts, also called spider charts, to display customer satisfaction metrics across 6 dimensions. The symmetrical, star-shaped visualization looked impressive and modern, but it made actual comparisons between dimensions nearly impossible. This sin often manifests when dashboard creators prioritize aesthetics over function. Globe Telecom replaced an effective but boring bar chart showing regional performance with an interactive 3D globe that users could spin. It looked impressive in demonstrations, but actual users found it difficult to make precise comparisons. After 6 months, they reverted to the simpler visualization and saw immediate improvements in decision quality. Another classic example is the dashboard that used heat maps to show exact values. Heat maps excel at showing patterns across many data points, but they're terrible for communicating specific values. When the marketing team needed to know exact conversion rates for different customer segments, they couldn't extract that information from the color-coded visualization without hovering over each cell individually. The fourth deadly sin is failing to provide context that makes numbers meaningful. A logistics company's fleet management dashboard proudly displayed a large KPI showing 97.3% on-time delivery without any reference point. Was that good, bad, improving, deteriorating? Users had no way to know if this number warranted celebration or concern. Context can come in many forms: comparison to targets, historical trends, industry benchmarks, or statistical significance indicators. Without this context, numbers float in a vacuum of meaninglessness. When Apex Consulting added simple sparklines showing 3-month trends alongside each key metric, plus color-coded indicators for performance against targets, dashboard adoption increased by 68%. Another aspect of this sin appears when dashboards display precise numbers without indicating significance. A technology company's product performance dashboard showed user engagement metrics to 3 decimal places, creating an illusion of precision that led product managers to react to statistically meaningless fluctuations. Adding confidence intervals and significance indicators helped them focus on meaningful changes. Beyond these 4 deadly sins, 2 additional dashboard mistakes deserve honorable mention. Excessive decoration, what Edward Tufte calls chart junk, adds visual complexity without adding informational value. Gradient backgrounds, unnecessary icons, and decorative 3D effects don't just waste space. They actively interfere with comprehension by competing for the user's limited attention. The final mistake is poor information hierarchy. When everything is emphasized, nothing stands out. Effective dashboards guide the user's attention to what matters most through thoughtful use of size, position, color, and white space. A telecommunications company's network operations dashboard failed because it gave equal visual weight to critical alerts and routine status indicators, causing operators to miss urgent issues amid the visual noise. The common thread connecting all these dashboard sins is a failure to remember the dashboard's purpose, enabling better, faster decisions. Every element that doesn't directly contribute to that goal doesn't just fail to add value, it actively detracts from the dashboard's effectiveness by competing for the user's limited cognitive resources. Decision-driving dashboard elements. What actually works? If you could only include 3 elements in a dashboard, what would they be? This isn't just a theoretical question. It's one that forces us to consider what truly drives decisions when users interact with our visualizations. After examining what doesn't work in dashboards, we need to flip our perspective and focus on what actually makes a difference in decision quality. Recent eye tracking studies conducted at major corporations revealed something surprising. Users typically focus on just 4 to 7 elements when making decisions, regardless of how many visualizations are present on the screen. When researchers at Stanford's Human-Computer Interaction Lab analyzed thousands of hours of dashboard interactions, they discovered that many popular visualization types, like gauges, pie charts, and 3D visualizations, rarely influenced the final decision despite drawing initial attention. What's particularly interesting is how decision patterns remained consistent across industries. Whether in healthcare, finance, manufacturing, or retail, the same fundamental elements consistently drove decision-making. These weren't necessarily the most visually striking or technically impressive components, but rather the elements that most effectively translated data into actionable insights. The first key element that consistently drives decisions is clear comparison to targets or benchmarks. When Forrester Research analyzed dashboard effectiveness across 200 organizations, they found that visualizations featuring explicit comparisons to targets were 3.4 times more likely to influence decisions than those showing standalone metrics. This makes intuitive sense. Numbers in isolation tell us very little about performance. Consider how differently you'd interpret these 2 presentations of the same data. Current customer acquisition cost, $320, versus customer acquisition cost, $320. Target, $275. The second immediately contextualizes the metric and signals whether action is needed. This comparison effect is even stronger when visually reinforced through techniques like bullet charts, which embed the actual value, target, and performance ranges in a single compact display. At TechVista Solutions, the implementation of clear benchmark comparisons in their product development dashboard reduced decision time from 14 minutes to just under 3 minutes in A/B testing. Product managers reported that seeing metrics in context eliminated the mental calculations they previously performed before making resource allocation decisions. The second element that consistently drives decisions is trend indicators that show both direction and velocity of change. The human brain is wired to detect movement and change, making trend visualization particularly powerful for decision support. When Rapid Metrics analyzed dashboard interactions across their client base, they found that users spent 42% of their total viewing time on trend indicators, despite these elements typically occupying less than 15% of the screen space. Effective trend indicators go beyond simple up-down arrows to communicate both direction and magnitude of change. The most decision-supportive trend visualizations include Small embedded sparklines showing 7 to 12 data points that reveal patterns without requiring extensive analysis. Directional indicators with color coding to immediately signal improvement or decline. Rate of change metrics that communicate acceleration or deceleration of key trends. At Northeast Community Healthcare, emergency department managers consistently focused on trend indicators, showing patient wait times across different severity categories. The simple slope of these tiny charts provided immediate guidance on where to allocate additional resources during peak periods, reducing critical wait times by 26% within 3 months of implementation. The third element that consistently influences decisions is exception highlighting, visual cues that immediately draw attention to outliers or values requiring action. In comprehensive user testing at Global Financial Services, dashboards featuring exception highlighting reduced the time to identify critical issues by 71% compared to those without such features. Effective exception highlighting uses principles of visual salience to guide attention. Subtle background color to identify values outside acceptable ranges. Size, variation to emphasize the most significant deviations. Position placement to leverage the natural reading pattern of the user. When Logistics International redesigned their fleet management dashboard with exception highlighting as a core principle, they experienced a 34% reduction in response time to critical maintenance issues. The system used a progressive disclosure approach, highlighting only the vehicles requiring immediate attention on the main screen, while allowing users to access the complete fleet data through drill-down functionality. The fourth element that consistently drives decisions is appropriate contextual information that makes numbers meaningful. This goes beyond simple comparisons to include the specific context needed to interpret a metric correctly. In usability studies at the University of Michigan's Information Visualization Lab, dashboards featuring contextual elements increased decision quality by 28% compared to those showing identical metrics without context. Effective contextual elements include annotations explaining unusual data patterns or outliers, reference information like industry averages or historical records, explanatory text that translates metrics into business implications. At Western Manufacturing, operators significantly improved their response to production slowdowns after contextual information was added to their performance dashboard. Rather than simply showing production rates below target, the revised dashboard included contextual factors like material availability, staffing levels, and maintenance schedules that might explain the variance, allowing for more targeted interventions. What's fascinating about these four elements, comparisons, trends, exceptions, and context, is that they work synergistically. When research firm DataIQ analyzed dashboard effectiveness across industries, they found that dashboards incorporating all four elements were 5.7 times more likely to drive consistent decision-making than those with only one or two elements. A particularly striking example comes from Atlantic Regional Bank, where the lending dashboard was redesigned to incorporate these four elements. The new design, 1, displayed current approval rates alongside targets and historical averages comparison. 2, showed 3-month trends in approval rates across customer segments trend. 3, highlighted segments with unusual changes in approval patterns exception. 4, provided context about regulatory changes and competitor activities that might explain variations context. After implementation, the time required for weekly portfolio reviews decreased by 64%, while the consistency of lending decisions across different analysts improved by 41%. The key insight is that these elements don't just make dashboards more user-friendly, they fundamentally improve the quality of decisions made from the data. When Brookings Institution researchers studied dashboard usage in public sector organizations, they found that incorporating these four elements reduced decision bias by 36% compared to traditional report formats. What's particularly valuable about this research is that it gives us clear direction when designing dashboards for decision support. Instead of asking, which visualization types should I include? We can ask the more fundamental question, how can I incorporate clear comparisons, meaningful trends, exception highlighting, and appropriate context into my design? The technical visual balance, accuracy versus simplicity. Beyond incorporating the right elements lies a paradox that haunts even experienced data professionals. The pursuit of technical excellence can take us down two divergent paths: creating dashboards that dazzle with sophisticated analytical precision but overwhelm users, or producing beautifully simple visualizations that fail to capture crucial nuances in the data. I recently examined two dashboards from the same financial services company, one created by their data science team and one by their design team, that perfectly illustrate this dilemma. The data science team's dashboard was a marvel of technical accuracy. It contained perfectly calculated risk metrics, comprehensive statistical indicators, and precise numerical displays down to 3 decimal places. Every possible data point was represented. The problem? Executive users opened it, stared blankly for about 30 seconds, and never returned. The cognitive load was simply too high to extract actionable insights. In contrast, the design team's dashboard was visually stunning and immediately comprehensible. Clean lines, minimal text, and bold visualizations made key metrics instantly apparent. Users loved it, until they discovered that the simplified metrics masked critical variations in the underlying data that led to several costly decisions. The dashboard was too simple to be accurate. This tension between technical accuracy and visual simplicity represents what I call the compression problem in data visualization. Just as compressing a high-resolution image loses detail, compressing complex data into simple visualizations risks losing critical information. Yet failing to compress data at all creates visualizations that are functionally unusable for decision makers. The solution isn't choosing between accuracy and simplicity, it's finding the balance point where both can coexist through progressive disclosure. Progressive disclosure is an approach that presents information in layers, starting with high-level insights and allowing users to drill down into more detailed information as needed. Global Shipping Corporation implemented this principle brilliantly in their logistics dashboard. The main view presented just 3 critical metrics: on-time delivery percentage, cost per mile, and capacity utilization. Each metric was represented by a simple gauge with clear color coding. But beneath this simplicity lay sophisticated technology. Users could click any metric to reveal trend lines, comparative analyses, and contributing factors. What made this approach successful was careful consideration of their audience's varying needs. Their CIO, Anita Ramirez, explained, "Our executives need to see if we're on target in seconds. Regional managers need to understand why we might be off target. And analysts need to explore the detailed data to determine how to get back on track. We designed our dashboard to serve all 3 levels without overwhelming anyone." This layered approach works because it respects both the data's complexity and the user's cognitive limitations. Research on information processing suggests humans can effectively process 3 to 7 chunks of information simultaneously. By organizing complex data into meaningful chunks at the top level and allowing optional exploration, you accommodate both quick scanning and detailed analysis. When implementing progressive disclosure, consider building your visualization in 3 distinct layers. The first layer should answer the question, is everything okay, or do I need to pay attention? This layer might use simple indicators like green, yellow, red status markers or up-down trend arrows. Technova's Security Operations Center reduced incident response time by 47% after implementing a dashboard where the top layer showed only systems requiring immediate attention, with color coding indicating severity. The second layer should answer, what's the nature and scope of what I'm seeing? This layer provides context through trend lines, comparative baselines, or categorical breakdowns. Clicking on a concerning metric should reveal this layer automatically. Midwest Healthcare Network's patient satisfaction dashboard allows department heads to immediately see which specific aspects of care are driving overall satisfaction scores, but only when they need that detail. The third layer provides full analytical capability. What detailed investigation can I perform to understand root causes? This might include interactive filtering, correlation analysis, or raw data tables. Westlake Manufacturing's production dashboard allows quality engineers to drill down to individual machine data when troubleshooting defects, while keeping this complexity hidden from plant managers who need broader insights. Beyond progressive disclosure, several techniques can help maintain accuracy while simplifying presentation. One powerful approach is intelligent aggregation. Rather than showing every data point, group them meaningfully based on user needs. Pacific Retail transformed their store performance dashboard by grouping 342 individual stores into performance quartiles, with the ability to expand each quartile to see individual stores. Another effective technique is contextual simplification, reducing precision where it doesn't affect decisions. When Biomed Research revised their clinical trials dashboard, they realized reporting patient response rates to 3 decimal places created an illusion of precision without improving decision quality. By rounding to whole percentages and highlighting only statistically significant differences, they maintained accuracy while dramatically improving clarity. Visual encoding provides another path to simplification without sacrificing accuracy. Renaissance Investment Group replaced complex numerical risk scores with a visual system that encoded 5 risk factors into a single icon. The shape, color, size, and orientation of the icon conveyed multiple dimensions of risk simultaneously, allowing analysts to spot problematic investments instantly without losing the multidimensional nature of risk assessment. Perhaps the most overlooked technique is aligned abstraction, simplifying metrics in ways that align with how decisions are actually made. Atlantic Shipping discovered that their captains didn't need precise fuel efficiency calculations showing variations of 0.01%, but rather needed to know which of 3 operating modes would optimize their specific voyage. By simplifying their efficiency dashboard to recommend one of 3 distinct operating strategies based on complex underlying calculations, they improved both usability and compliance. The framework that ties these approaches together is what I call lucid visualization, layered, user-centered, context-aware information design. This framework guides the balance between technical accuracy and visual simplicity by focusing on 3 key questions. First, what decisions need to be supported at each level of the organization? Document the specific choices users make based on the dashboard. Second, what is the minimum information required to make those decisions confidently? Identify the essential data points that influence each decision. Third, how can that information be presented in ways that match users' technical comfort and cognitive capacity? Design visualization layers that progress from simple to complex as needed. By answering these questions, you can create dashboards that are both technically accurate and visually accessible. Northeast Utilities applied the Lucid framework to transform their grid management system from a complex array of engineering metrics to a layered dashboard that enabled operators to monitor the entire grid at a glance while providing detailed engineering data on demand. The result was a 34% improvement in response time to potential outages and a 28% reduction in unnecessary maintenance dispatches. The Vision Framework. Systematically gathering dashboard requirements. The Vision Framework emerged from studying both spectacular dashboard failures and remarkable successes across industries. While frameworks like Lucid transform existing dashboards, what happens when you're staring at a blank canvas with stakeholders who can't articulate what they actually need? Even the most brilliant visualization techniques collapse when built on incomplete requirements, a lesson I learned after watching a Fortune 500 company scrap their 3rd consecutive dashboard attempt despite investing over $200,000. The Vision Framework provides a systematic approach to requirements gathering, addressing each critical element needed before a single visualization is created. Vision stands for values, insights, stakeholders, information, outcomes, and next steps. Skipping any single component dramatically increases the risk of dashboard failure. Consider Vertex Technologies, who implemented a customer service dashboard that ignored the values component. Their visualizations perfectly displayed call center metrics, but completely missed the company's strategic shift toward customer retention rather than cost reduction. 6 weeks of development work ended up shelved because the dashboard solved the wrong problem. The values component forces alignment with organizational priorities before design begins. At Transglobal Shipping, their values assessment revealed that sustainability metrics deserved equal prominence with traditional operational KPIs. When examining your organization's values, ask, what principles guide decision-making at the highest level? And how do these values translate to measurable outcomes? Regional healthcare network discovered the importance of the insights component when their patient experience dashboard failed to gain traction. The beautifully designed dashboard answered dozens of questions no one was asking while ignoring the critical insights nursing directors actually needed, namely, which departments needed immediate intervention based on real-time patient feedback. The insights component identifies specific questions the dashboard must answer to drive action. Questions to ask during this phase include what specific insights will change decisions or behavior, and what patterns or anomalies would be most valuable to identify. Mountain Financial Group learned about the stakeholders component the hard way. Their investment performance dashboard was designed exclusively for portfolio managers but was primarily accessed by client-facing advisors who needed different information entirely. The result was a dashboard that served no one effectively. The stakeholders component maps all potential users, their technical comfort levels, and their specific needs. Key questions include: who will use this dashboard daily, weekly, or monthly? And what are the varying technical abilities of different user groups? Skipping the information component led to Continental Manufacturing's production dashboard, displaying incorrect conclusions for 3 weeks before anyone noticed. The dashboard pulled from automated sensor data without accounting for routine maintenance periods, creating misleading trends. The information component thoroughly inventories available data sources, quality issues, and limitations before visualization begins. Critical questions include: what data is actually available versus what's desired? And what are the known quality issues or limitations in the data? CloudSurf Technologies invested heavily in a complex cloud infrastructure dashboard but had no way to determine if it was successful because they skipped the outcomes component. The outcomes component defines clear metrics to evaluate the dashboard itself. Was it actually used? Did it influence decisions? Did those decisions improve business results? Questions to ask include: how will we measure the dashboard's success? And what behavioral changes do we expect to see if the dashboard is effective? The final component, next steps, provides clarity on development timelines, review cycles, and future iterations. When Pinnacle Retail implemented their inventory management dashboard, they created detailed next steps that specified twice-weekly review meetings during development and a formal evaluation process 3 weeks after launch. This structured approach dramatically improved stakeholder satisfaction compared to previous dashboard projects. To demonstrate the power of the complete vision framework, consider how Western Healthcare Network transformed their emergency department operations. Before implementing vision, they had attempted 3 different dashboard iterations, each meeting with limited adoption and frustration. Their 4th attempt began with the complete framework. For values, they identified patient outcomes and staff well-being as their guiding principles, which meant prioritizing metrics like patient wait times correlated with acuity levels and staff workload distribution. For insights, they determined 3 critical questions: which patient types experienced the longest waits relative to acuity? When do staffing levels misalign with patient volume? And which interventions have successfully reduced wait times in similar circumstances? The stakeholders component revealed 5 distinct user groups, from floor nurses needing real-time patient status to department directors analyzing weekly trends. Each required different levels of detail and technical complexity. Their information assessment uncovered that patient flow data was only reliable after a recent system update, meaning historical comparisons would require normalization. They also discovered that patient satisfaction data arrived with a 2-week lag, limiting its use for real-time decisions. For outcomes, they established clear success metrics: 90% daily dashboard usage by charge nurses, 25% reduction in wait times for mid-acuity patients, and documented evidence of at least 1 operational change per week based on dashboard insights. Finally, the next steps component created a 6-week development timeline with twice-weekly stakeholder reviews and a formal evaluation scheduled for 30 days post-implementation. The result was remarkable: a dashboard that achieved 100% adoption among target users and contributed to a 31% reduction in wait times for priority patients. The emergency department director noted, "For the first time, we have a visualization tool that actually helps us make better decisions instead of just showing us data." The vision framework ensures comprehensive requirements gathering across all critical dimensions before visualization begins. By methodically addressing each component, you dramatically increase the likelihood of creating dashboards that drive meaningful action rather than collecting digital dust. A recent analysis of 78 dashboard projects across industries found that those implementing all 6 vision components were 4.3 times more likely to be rated highly effective by stakeholders compared to projects that addressed 3 or fewer components. The same study found that organizations using the complete framework reduced dashboard development time by an average of 34% by eliminating rework caused by misaligned expectations. Communicating data challenges when perfect visualization isn't possible. Even with perfect requirements gathering, you'll inevitably face the moment every data analyst dreads. Telling a senior executive their visualization request is impossible. The conversation that follows will test your communication skills more than any technical challenge you've faced. Picture this. You're sitting across from the VP of marketing who's adamant about visualizing customer sentiment across 5 dimensions simultaneously with real-time updates, despite your organization having no sentiment analysis capabilities in place. The room grows tense as you realize you must explain why this simply cannot be done with the current data infrastructure. These moments happen to every analyst. A McKinsey study found that 62% of data professionals report being asked to create visualizations that are technically impossible at least once per quarter. More concerning, 47% admit to attempting these impossible tasks rather than addressing the underlying limitations directly. The inability to effectively communicate data limitations creates a dangerous cycle. Analysts attempt the impossible, deliver subpar results, stakeholders lose faith in data capabilities, and the organization's data culture suffers. Breaking this cycle requires mastering the delicate art of saying no constructively. The first challenge is recognizing impossible requests. These typically fall into 3 categories: data that doesn't exist, relationships that can't be established, and visualizations that exceed technical capabilities. For instance, when North Star Logistics wanted to visualize delivery efficiency by customer satisfaction levels, they hit a fundamental roadblock. They had no systematic way to collect customer satisfaction data tied to specific deliveries. When faced with these scenarios, many analysts make a critical mistake, explaining the technical limitations in detail. As one executive at Tech Future Industries noted, when my analyst starts talking about data structures and ETL processes, I tune out. I just need to know if my business question can be answered, and if not, what alternatives exist. Instead of technical explanations, successful analysts use a 4-step approach called the REAL method. Recognize the need, explain limitations simply, alternative solutions, and learning opportunity. The first step is recognizing the true business need behind the request. When the CFO of global manufacturing asked for a dashboard showing wasted production capacity by employee, the underlying need wasn't about individual performance monitoring, but identifying systemic bottlenecks in the production process. Alex Chen, Data Analytics Director at Vertex Solutions, describes his approach. I always ask, what decision are you trying to make with this information? This shifts the conversation from the specific visualization to the business outcome they're pursuing. This question often reveals that the stakeholder's actual need can be met through different means than their initial request. Once you understand the core need, explain limitations simply using analogies that relate to common experiences. When explaining why customer purchase predictions couldn't be made at an individual level with the available data, one analyst at Retail Corp compared it to trying to predict exactly which raindrop will hit your windshield first during a storm. We can predict patterns across thousands of customers with reasonable accuracy, but individual predictions would be essentially random. Technical concepts become accessible when translated into everyday experiences. Database joins can be explained as matching guests from 2 different wedding invitation lists, while data granularity limitations can be described as having a satellite image that shows neighborhoods clearly but not individual houses. Researchers at Stanford's Data Communication Lab found that analogies improved stakeholder understanding of data limitations by 74% compared to technical explanations, while simultaneously reducing frustration with these limitations by 38%. The third step, offering alternative solutions, is where you transform potential disappointment into opportunity. When Eastern Healthcare's COO requested real-time patient experience metrics that were impossible with their current survey-based collection methods, their data team proposed a hybrid solution, developing a limited real-time feedback system for high-priority departments while enhancing their existing survey process to reduce reporting delays. Sarah Johnson, analytics lead at Meridian Financial, emphasizes, never just say something can't be done. Always pair limitations with possibilities. I present 3 alternatives that capture the essence of what they need, even if the form is different from what they initially envisioned. When Pacific Telecommunications requested location-specific network performance metrics without having the necessary geographic identifiers in their data, the analytics team created a workaround using IP address ranges to approximate locations, not perfect but sufficient to identify regional performance issues. The most effective alternative solutions follow a simple formula. Acknowledge the limitation, explain why it matters, offer the closest possible alternative, and outline what would be needed to address the gap in the future. The final step turns the limitation into a learning opportunity for both parties. Data limitations often highlight important gaps in an organization's measurement capabilities. By documenting these gaps systematically, you create a roadmap for future data improvements while demonstrating your commitment to solving the underlying business need. Central Retail transformed their inability to link in-store behavior with online purchases into a compelling case for implementing a unified customer ID system. What began as a failed dashboard request evolved into a strategic initiative that ultimately transformed their customer analytics capabilities. Beyond the real framework, effective delivery matters tremendously. Research from the Communications Institute shows that stakeholders are 3.2 times more likely to accept alternative solutions when presented visually rather than verbally. Creating quick mock-ups of what is possible versus what was requested helps stakeholders visualize the compromise. Body language and tone are equally important. Phrases like, "the data doesn't support that," sound accusatory, while "here's what our current data can tell us" maintains a collaborative tone. Similarly, "that's impossible" creates resistance, while "let me show you what's possible now and what we'd need to make that visualization work in the future" keeps the door open. Timing also matters. Westlake Industries avoided a potential crisis by addressing feasibility concerns early in their executive dashboard project. Their data team created a simple capability matrix showing which requested metrics could be visualized immediately, which would require moderate effort, and which were currently impossible given their data infrastructure. This proactive approach reset expectations before disappointment could set in. Remember that these conversations have lasting implications for how data teams are perceived. As Dr. Maya Rodriguez, Chief Data Officer at Global Health Partners, notes, how you handle impossible requests defines your team's reputation more than your successful projects. Anyone can deliver when everything aligns perfectly. True data leadership emerges when you navigate limitations while maintaining stakeholder trust. Throughout our journey, we've explored how effective data visualization hinges on understanding both technical elements and human factors. As we conclude, let's focus on what truly makes data professionals indispensable to organizations. Data professionals don't just manipulate numbers, they extract meaningful value that drives informed decision-making and shapes business strategies. This ability to transform raw information into actionable insights is what makes the role so vital in today's data-driven landscape. Before starting your next visualization project, remember this essential checklist. Establish clear data governance protocols, implement rigorous quality assurance processes, develop strong data fluency across your organization, master appropriate business intelligence tools, and refine your data visualization techniques. These foundational elements will ensure your data work doesn't just look good, but actually delivers the insights your stakeholders need to make confident decisions. Take these principles forward in your next project. And the difference between a forgotten dashboard and one that transforms an organization often comes down to these fundamental skills.